Okay folks, I've got Judith here and she's going to tell us a bit about basically what's happening with the filming this afternoon, because you're going to see various different people in this video. We're going to be flicking from one tree to another, but Judith's going to tell us about the group, so tell us a bit more, Judith.
I come from the small group based in Harborough called the Grafters and Growers. This is the group we've developed over the last year or two, and it's to get more apple trees growing around, in and around Market Harborough, so to get more local free food. And we're linking up with other orchards and people who are growing apples and have got interest in apples. So we've come to the Dispatch estate today to help Sophie do the pruning, the summer pruning of the late summer pruning of the apple trees, and also the pruning of the stone fruit trees, for example the plum tree. And this is a good exchange because we help Sophie do some pruning. We've got a large collection of apple trees here, fruit trees. In exchange, we'll come back in February and we'll take some scionwood, which is the new growth of the wood, and use that for our grafting workshop at the end of February. And we can replicate the older heritage varieties of apples and plums and put them onto MM106 rootstock, which grows to the first floor height of a house, and also some M9 rootstock, which is a dwarfing rootstock, which is about 6 to 10 feet high.
Okay.
And the grafting workshop is to get local people again to come along, learn the skill of grafting, and take home 2 apple grafts themselves, and so they can grow apple trees and become experts on the 2 apple tree varieties they've got.
And this is for Leicestershire?
I'm concentrating mainly on the Leicestershire Heritage Apple trees.
Okay.
But the more I discuss it, I realise, of course, that the varieties of apple trees which do well in their own local microclimate probably depend highly not on the local climate but also on the soil type. And of course this isn't bounded by the county boundaries, so calling it the Leicestershire Heritage Apple varieties is quite an artificial definition. But really there's a band of clay which goes right across England up towards the top of Wales, and that might support a group of varieties of apple trees better than perhaps the chalky soil type down south in England.
Okay.
But for the moment we've got to start small and thinking about the more locally, the local varieties which have been around for a long time in our area.
How many varieties of apples are there in local varieties in Leicestershire, approximately?
I think there's there's an enormous amount of different apple trees, depending on which pips people have thrown on the ground and which have grown over the decades. I believe that Nigel from the Leicestershire Heritage Apple project has identified perhaps up to 1,000, or he's aware of perhaps there'll be 1,000 heritage apple varieties, whether that's just Leicestershire or going beyond.
Yeah.
So it's almost an unlimited number of varieties. Now we bring that down to a smaller number of varieties of apples that we like, because we know that they produce a tasty eating apple or a good cooking apple which will store well. And also we look at different varieties, which some varieties may be ready for picking and eating early on, even in September, whereas others you pick later on in the autumn, October, November time, and they might store through to March of the following year. So we sort of slightly limit our the varieties that we concentrate on by personal preference, probably.
Okay.
And also the scionwood available, so we collect many of our varieties of scionwood for here from Coatsmatch Estate.
Tell us quickly about scionwood, what it is, because there might be people watching this who haven't got an idea.
Scionwood is the last year's growth, the tip of the growth of the apple tree, often the upright branches, and if you cut that off, that is the bit of wood that you graft onto the rootstock. The rootstock is a variety of apple. It doesn't produce very good apples, but it loves producing roots. Whereas my scion comes from my favourite variety of apple, but is not very good at producing roots. So if I stuck it in the ground to try and take a cutting, it is more than likely will fail.
Okay.
So I put my scion wood, my favourite variety, and graft it onto my chosen rootstock.
Lovely. Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you. Now the other thing I've been developing is a website for the Grafters and Growers Harborough Apple group, because we feel that this is the way forward to bring information together onto one site which is accessible to everyone. And we've been developing this website over the last year or two. We're a bit slow because we're not IT experts, but we've had a grant from the Leicestershire County Council to support this, and now this grant needs to be completed. It's what I've been concentrating on this last week. And on the website, it's going to have a bit of introduction about who the Grafters and Growers are, what our aims and ambitions are about growing more local free food. There's also going to be a section on photographs. These are photographs that I've taken from the grafting workshop, very young, newly grafted apple trees. And the plan is to take a photograph of this group of newly grafted apple trees each year, and each year they'll grow. And if I put all these pictures together from each year, this will become my virtual orchard. So it means that where there's no space, there's not very little space around Harborough for setting up a new orchard, the virtual orchard is bringing together all the apple trees that are growing in different people's gardens or growing spaces together as a photograph, which we can see on the website. So this is my virtual orchard.
Right. And have you got the address of this website?
At the moment, I think it can be found by entering Grafters and Growers, Market Harborough, or the Harborough Orchard Project. And they pick it up.
Okay.
It's still just being finalised. So
Well, it will take several months for the search engines to pick it up.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's be good. So give me time to... We've also got a mapping section. So at the moment we've got the Great Glen Orchard, where we also have heritage apple trees. So we've mapped that. And all these different orchards or places where I can find the heritage apples can be found on the map. And so say you particularly want an old Annie Elizabeth, you can look on the map, work out which orchard has got it, and then you can visit that orchard to see what the apple tree looks like and how it tastes.
Yeah.
So that you can go through the right time of the year.
Sounds good. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Very good, thank you.